Have you ever felt like life is slipping through your fingers, caught in the relentless cycle of daily routines, yet yearning for something more, something transformative? Many of us experience that sense of dissatisfaction, as though we have everything yet still feel incomplete. But what if the power to change your life lies within you, waiting for the right moment to awaken? What if you could make the shift you've been longing for right now, before 2024 comes to a close? I invite you to see this moment as the starting point for a profound transformation, a step toward becoming the best version of yourself. Buddhism offers timeless wisdom to guide us in this journey, and in the next few minutes, we'll explore how its teachings can help you unlock the power of change that's already inside you. The transformation of the mind begins with small moments of mindfulness, like removing a single weed from a neglected garden, observing your breath and thoughts, even in their smallest forms, plants seeds of change. Over time, these mindful moments create a foundation for personal growth. Steve Jobs, for example, credited mindfulness meditation for much of his creativity and focus. Amid personal and professional turmoil, he turned to Zen Buddhism, clearing his mind to focus on what truly mattered. Through this practice, Jobs found clarity and purpose in both his personal life and his work. Mindfulness is not about silencing your thoughts but observing them without judgment. It's about recognizing your mind's habits, fears, and desires, learning which are helpful and which are limiting. Eleanor Roosevelt's example illustrates this. As First Lady, she faced immense pressure but overcame feelings of inadequacy through self-reflection, transforming herself into a symbol of resilience. By writing in her diary, she practiced introspection and faced challenges with strength, proving that mindfulness can help transform self-doubt into courage. As you begin cultivating awareness, resistance may arise. Your mind may pull you back to old habits or fears, but this discomfort is part of the process. Growth often comes from facing discomfort, just as Malala Yousafzai did in her fight for girls' education. Despite facing fear and adversity, Malala remained steadfast and driven by a vision of change, demonstrating that courage is not the absence of fear, but acting in spite of it. Compassion is another key aspect of transformation. Mahatma Gandhi, rooted in nonviolence, showed that true change comes through understanding and empathy, even for those who oppose us. Self-compassion, too, is essential. We can be our harshest critics, but Buddhist teachings remind us to treat ourselves with the same kindness we'd offer a friend. J.K. Rowling's journey of facing rejection and embracing setbacks as learning opportunities exemplifies the power of self-compassion. Letting go of attachments is also vital. For transformation, Buddhism teaches that attachment to outcomes, possessions, or identities leads to suffering. Barack Obama exemplifies this mindset, focusing on service and purpose rather than personal accolades. This approach frees us from clinging to results and helps us act with clarity and intention. Gratitude deepens the transformative process. Oprah Winfrey, an advocate of gratitude journaling, has found peace and fulfillment even in challenging times by focusing on what she has rather than what she lacks. The more we nurture gratitude, the more it grows and enriches our lives. Generosity, stemming from gratitude, has the power to create positive change. As seen in Jeff Bezos's philanthropic efforts, his generosity reflects a deeper understanding of our shared responsibility for the world. Giving not only benefits the recipient but transforms the giver, highlighting the Buddhist principle of dana. As you nurture your inner garden, you'll notice a shift in how you respond to challenges. Instead of reacting from fear or habit, mindfulness allows you to pause, reflect, and choose a path aligned with your values. This journey of transformation is not linear. There will be doubts and setbacks, but as Buddhist teachings remind us, the path itself is the goal. Every step, each breath, act of kindness, and moment of awareness is part of the process. Like a gardener tending plants, You may not see immediate results, but in time, your efforts will bear fruit. As your inner garden flourishes, it will radiate peace and positivity, inspiring others to begin their own journeys of change. Life is lived in moments, and mindfulness helps you reclaim those moments, revealing the richness of the present.
Thể lễ thích nhất hạnh. A Buddhist môn.
Taught that even washing dishes could be a transformative act when done mindfully, with full attention to each sensation. Mindfulness can be practiced in all areas of life, including high-pressure situations. Satya Nadella, CEO of Microsoft, emphasizes slowing down and focusing on the present moment to maintain clarity. The fast-paced, technology-driven world pulls us away from the present, but mindfulness allows us to train our minds and return to the now. Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor, found meaning even in the darkest circumstances by staying present. His story highlights how mindfulness can provide resilience in adversity. Mindfulness in the present allows for deeper connections. By focusing on the moment, we break down barriers and see others for who they truly are. Former President Jimmy Carter, through his work with Habitat for Humanity, exemplifies the power of presence in service to others. As you practice mindfulness, you'll notice how it changes your reactions, creating space for more thoughtful responses rooted in compassion. The Dalai Lama's ability to connect deeply with others, regardless of their background, shows how mindfulness fosters understanding and empathy. In his meetings with world leaders and everyday people, he listens attentively, practicing mindfulness in action. This kind of presence enables him to offer wisdom with profound insight, teaching others the importance of mindfulness in cultivating peace and compassion. Incorporating mindfulness into daily life transforms how we interact with ourselves and others. Michelle Obama's advocacy for mindfulness highlights its role in navigating complex situations and balancing emotions. By staying grounded and present, we approach challenges with clarity and grace, improving our relationships and communication. Mindfulness also reshapes our work. Sheryl Sandberg, COO of Facebook, practices mindful pauses throughout her day to focus on what matters. This practice helps her lead with clarity, just as the Dalai Lama's mindful listening enriches his relationships and teachings. Mindfulness strengthens not only our personal growth but our impact on the world around us. As mindfulness becomes a part of daily life, it changes how we approach ordinary moments. Eating, walking, or listening can become transformative acts. Steve Jobs, for instance, approached meals with mindfulness, focusing on each bite, clearing his mind, and finding new solutions. Mindfulness helps us stay centered even in stressful situations, as seen in Jack Ma's approach to the pressures of being an entrepreneur. Mindfulness also improves how we engage with others. Leaders like Nelson Mandela embodied presence in their conversations, taking time to understand before responding. This ability to listen deeply and act with mindfulness creates respect and fosters unity. Similarly, mindfulness enables us to be present in our relationships, creating a foundation for more meaningful connections. As you continue practicing mindfulness, you'll notice its profound impact on your life. It's not about perfection but consistency. Each time you return to the present moment, you strengthen your ability to live fully and authentically. Mindfulness transforms the ordinary into the extraordinary, connecting you more deeply with the world around you. In Buddhism, right mindfulness means observing things without attachment, seeing the world as it truly is. By practicing this form of mindfulness, we recognize the impermanence of all things, the interconnectedness of life, and the beauty in every moment. This awareness reshapes our reactions, making us more patient, appreciative, and compassionate. Mindfulness brings peace, wisdom, and compassion, shaping not just our actions but also our character. Over time, this practice transforms our relationships and the way we experience life, helping us find fulfillment in the present moment. Building on our earlier discussion about compassion, it's essential to understand that true compassion isn't just about offering kindness to others. it's equally important to extend that kindness toward ourselves. This concept of self-compassion is fundamental in Buddhist teachings and refers to embracing our imperfections, forgiving ourselves for past mistakes, and offering ourselves the same care and kindness we so readily give to others. In Buddhist philosophy, the practice of loving kindness or metta is a key principle in the path toward enlightenment. It teaches us that in order to genuinely love and care for others, we must first learn to love and care for ourselves. However, many of us struggle with this. We often criticize ourselves for perceived shortcomings or mistakes, holding ourselves to impossibly high standards. We forget that being human means being imperfect. Just as we would offer compassion to a friend who is struggling, we must learn to show that same understanding and kindness to ourselves. A powerful example of self-compassion is Richard Branson, the founder of Virgin Group, known for his dynamic leadership style and focus on employee well-being. Branson has also been open about his personal struggles, particularly with anxiety. He has shared that learning to accept his flaws and vulnerabilities has been key to his success. His openness about his mental health and his ability to embrace imperfection reflect the practice of self-compassion in action. Similarly, tennis legend Serena Williams, despite her immense success, has faced significant pressure and criticism, not only for her performance but also for her appearance. In a world that often demands perfection from athletes, Williams has been outspoken about the importance of self-love and self-care. She has openly discussed her struggles with mental health, particularly after becoming a mother, and has emphasized the need to take time for oneself and embrace imperfections. Her journey teaches us that even those at the top of their game are still human and deserving of compassion. Self-compassion is not a passive act. It requires us to actively engage with our own well-being. It involves stopping negative self-talk, releasing judgment, and accepting ourselves as we are. When we practice self-compassion, we become more resilient, better equipped to navigate life's challenges, and able to learn and grow from every failure. Self-compassion also helps us move forward from our past mistakes. One of the key teachings in Buddhism is the importance of letting go of attachments to suffering, guilt, regret, and outdated self-images. Letting go allows us to release the grip of self-criticism, recognizing that we are not defined by our past. In the present moment, we have the power to choose how we respond to ourselves and others. Yet, self-compassion is only one aspect of the Buddhist path. Extending compassion to others, particularly those who challenge us or have wronged us, is where true transformation begins. It's easy to show compassion to those we love. But what happens when we encounter someone who irritates or disagrees with us, or someone who has hurt us? In these moments, offering compassion can feel like the last thing we want to do. But it is precisely in these moments that compassion has the power to heal not only our relationships but also our own hearts. Take the Dalai Lama, for example. Known for his deep compassion, the Dalai Lama has experienced exile, loss, and hardship throughout his life. Yet, he practices compassion not just toward his friends and allies but also toward those who have persecuted him and his people. After fleeing Tibet in 1959, he could have carried resentment toward the Chinese government. Instead, he chose to forgive, understanding that holding on to anger would only harm him. His ability to extend compassion, even toward those who have wronged him, teaches us that compassion is not about condoning harmful actions but recognizing the shared humanity in all people. The Dalai Lama often emphasizes the interconnectedness of all beings. He reminds us that the suffering of one is the suffering of many, and the happiness of one contributes to the happiness of all. This interconnectedness is at the heart of Buddhist compassion. When we extend compassion to others, we acknowledge that they are not separate from us. They are part of the same human experience. This realization deepens our sense of connection with others and encourages us to act with kindness, even when it is difficult. Consider Barack Obama, for instance. As the former president of the United States, Obama's leadership style emphasized empathy and understanding. Even in a time of deep political division, he showed compassion not only toward his supporters but also toward his opponents. In a polarized society, Obama's ability to listen to and engage with people from all sides exemplified the power of compassion in leadership. His approach teaches us that true leadership is about understanding and respecting others, not forcing them to agree with us. Obama's message was clear: when we extend compassion to others, we begin to break down the barriers that divide us. Compassion creates space for dialogue, understanding, and collaboration. It shifts our focus from winning arguments to building relationships, from protecting our egos to fostering peace. Compassion can also transform workplaces. For instance, Howard Schultz, the former CEO of Starbucks, built a corporate culture centered on compassion and care for employees. His decision to offer healthcare benefits to part-time workers was revolutionary in the retail industry, and he believed that caring for employees was not only the right thing to do but also smart business practice. By fostering a culture of compassion, Schultz helped create a company that valued people over profits, which contributed to the company's success. When we practice compassion consistently, it transforms the way we approach life's challenges. We begin to see every interaction as an opportunity to practice kindness, understanding, and forgiveness. We recognize that everyone, even those who challenge us, is deserving of our compassion because they, too, are on their own path of growth and transformation. Compassion has the potential to change not only our lives but also the world around us. It allows us to heal wounds, build bridges, and create a more harmonious world. As we nurture compassion in our lives, we realize that transformation is not a destination. It's an ongoing process that begins with a single act of kindness, which ripples out to touch the lives of others. Building upon this transformative power of compassion, the next step in our journey toward true peace and happiness is letting go. As we've discussed, embracing compassion for ourselves and others can soften the edges of our lives. But true liberation comes when we release our attachments. Attachment to desires, be it wealth, status, or relationships, often binds us in cycles of dissatisfaction. Buddhism teaches that clinging to anything is the root of suffering. Only by letting go can we experience the freedom that leads to lasting peace. Consider the pursuit of material wealth. Society often equates success with possessions and accolades.
Take Jeff Bezos,
for example. As the founder of Amazon, Bezos became one of the wealthiest people in the world. Yet, despite his wealth, he faced challenges like loneliness and the pressure of managing a massive enterprise. Over time, he realized that wealth alone doesn't guarantee fulfillment, and has since shifted his focus to philanthropy and personal growth. His shift exemplifies the realization that true fulfillment lies not in external wealth, but in inner peace. On a personal level, attachment to relationships can also cause suffering. We often develop unhealthy dependencies on others, believing our happiness depends on their affection or approval. When those relationships change or people leave, we can feel incomplete. Steve Jobs, for instance, after battling cancer, reflected on the fleeting nature of life. He let go of many attachments, choosing instead to focus on his passions, creativity, and legacy. Jobs' story teaches us that nothing in life is guaranteed, and embracing impermanence allows us to focus on what truly matters. In truth, attachment, though natural, is an illusion. We cling to things, believing they will bring happiness, but the more we hold on, the more we create suffering. The Buddha's teachings remind us that everything is impermanent. Just as we can't hold onto a river's flowing water, we can't cling to the things or people we believe will bring lasting happiness. Everything is in a state of change, and it's only when we let go of the need to control or possess that we can experience true freedom. Letting go is a powerful concept demonstrated in the lives of many successful people. J.K. Rowling, for example, was once rejected by numerous publishers and struggled in poverty. It wasn't until she let go of her attachment to success that Harry Potter found its way to the world. She wrote without obsession, and the results were transformative. Letting go isn't about abandoning our goals, but freeing ourselves from the emotional grip they have over us. It's about striving for goals without clinging to the outcomes, enjoying relationships without being dependent on them, and living without being consumed by external factors. Audrey Hepburn also exemplifies this. Despite her fame and personal struggles, she let go of her attachment to Hollywood and embraced a more meaningful life as a UNICEF Goodwill ambassador. She teaches us that letting go of superficial attachments can lead to a deeper, more fulfilling existence. The practice of letting go is ongoing, requiring mindfulness and awareness. Recognizing attachments, whether material or emotional, gives us the power to release them. The Buddha's middle way emphasizes this balance. We can enjoy life's beauty without clinging to it. By letting go of attachments to external achievements and possessions, we make space for inner peace. Nelson Mandela's story illustrates this further. After spending 27 years in prison, he chose forgiveness over anger, playing a key role in healing his nation. His ability to let go of the past opened the door for a brighter future. Ultimately, letting go is not about renouncing what we love but releasing the hold it has over us. It's about finding freedom in the present and trusting that life will unfold as it should. This process frees us from constant striving and opens us to peace and acceptance. It's about living fully, without resistance, and embracing life's endless possibilities. Detachment, the next step toward peace, is often misunderstood. It's not about withdrawing from life, but about engaging with it without becoming ensnared by it. By detaching from external factors like possessions, relationships, or achievements, we unlock inner freedom. This allows us to experience life's pleasures without fear of losing them. Elon Musk's career shows how detachment plays a role in success. Despite challenges, Musk remains focused on his vision, not defined by success or failure. This sense of detachment from immediate results allows him to keep pushing forward. Detachment can be cultivated by anyone, regardless of circumstances. It's about remaining grounded and centered, enjoying life's moments without attachment. The Dalai Lama is another example. Despite his exile and hardships, he remains focused on peace and compassion, showing that detachment doesn't mean indifference, but responding to life from a place of wisdom. In personal relationships, detachment means loving without depending on others for happiness. Angelina Jolie, for instance, remains centered in her sense of purpose, unaffected by the pressures of fame. This type of detachment allows us to give love freely, without expecting anything in return. Detachment also fosters resilience, helping us respond to life's inevitable ups and downs with grace. Barack Obama exemplifies this through his calm leadership amid political crises. His detachment from short-term chaos enabled him to focus on long-term goals. Moreover, detachment helps release the burden of expectations. When we let go of rigid expectations, we open ourselves to perfection or external validation. His detachment from the need for recognition allows him to grow as an artist and find deeper fulfillment. Ultimately, detachment requires patience and mindfulness. It's about living in the present moment, embracing the journey rather than focusing solely on the destination. When we let go of attachments, we experience life authentically, with joy and resilience. This freedom of detachment invites us to live fully, without fear, and with the understanding that we are enough as we are. The journey towards inner peace and wisdom often begins with understanding the role of the ego and the illusions it creates. The ego, which thrives on separation, constantly reinforces the belief that we are distinct from others. It thrives in comparison, competition, and the need to be superior. The ego wants us to prove our worth through external markers like status, accomplishments, and validation from others. It creates an insatiable desire to seek approval and recognition, making us feel incomplete or inadequate without them. But when we become aware of this, we realize that the ego is a barrier to our true self. Beyond the ego, we find our essence, which is grounded in connection, love, and authenticity. This version of ourselves isn't defined by external achievements or possessions, but by the peace and presence we cultivate within. Letting go of the ego doesn't mean giving up ambition. It means reframing our understanding of success and fulfillment. True fulfillment comes from within, not from what we gain or prove to others. Take Steve Jobs, for instance. He was widely recognized for his visionary leadership and relentless drive at Apple. However, his journey also involved grappling with his ego. After being ousted from the company he founded, Jobs experienced a profound shift. He spent years reflecting on his leadership style, learning from his past mistakes. When he returned to Apple, he was no longer the same. His approach became less about control and dominance and more about collaboration, innovation, and simplicity. This transformation illustrates the power of letting go of the ego's need to control, and instead allowing creativity and wisdom to flourish. His story is a testament to how releasing the ego can unlock a new level of personal and professional success. On a smaller scale, we can observe how the ego influences our daily lives. It manifests in subtle ways, often through our constant need for validation, comparison, and achievement. We measure our worth based on our career success, appearance, social media presence, or the opinions of others. This creates a cycle of dissatisfaction because the ego is always seeking more success, more approval, more affirmation. But the more we try to feed the ego, the emptier we feel. Buddhist teachings emphasize this point, suggesting that attachment to the ego and external validation is the root of suffering. The more we cling to these illusions, the more we distance ourselves from the peace and happiness that are always available within. Brené Brown, a well-known researcher on vulnerability, struggled with her own ego early in her career. She constantly sought validation from others, feeling unworthy unless she was accepted or admired. Over time, however, she learned to embrace vulnerability and let go of the ego's need for approval. By accepting her imperfections and being authentic, she discovered a deeper sense of self-worth. Her journey is an inspiring example of how releasing the ego's hold allows us to experience true connection and self-acceptance, rather than chasing an elusive sense of external validation. Mindfulness and self-awareness are some of the most powerful tools for dissolving the ego. Mindfulness allows us to become present with our thoughts and emotions, observing them without attachment or judgment. When we experience moments of fear, anger, or defensiveness, we can pause and reflect on the underlying influence of the ego. For example, when we receive criticism, our natural tendency might be to react defensively, feeling insulted or diminished. But with mindfulness, we can step back, recognize that our reaction is driven by the ego's fear of inadequacy, and choose to respond with wisdom and equanimity. This shift allows us to engage with the world in a more authentic and compassionate way, rather than being swept away by the ego's impulses. Nelson Mandela's life provides another powerful example of transcending the ego. As a leader in the fight against apartheid, Mandela faced immense challenges. He spent 27 years in prison, enduring suffering, isolation, and hardship. But what set him apart was his ability to release the desire for revenge and power. Upon his release, he chose forgiveness and reconciliation over resentment and division. His leadership wasn't driven by ego or personal gain, but by the vision of a unified, democratic South Africa. Mandela's life demonstrates that when we let go of the ego's desire for control and vengeance, we can achieve greater unity and collective healing. In the business world, Eric Schmidt's leadership at Google provides another insightful case. Schmidt was crucial to Google's rise to prominence, but he recognized that his own ego sometimes limited his ability to lead effectively. He learned to step back, empowering others in the company and fostering a culture of collaboration. This shift allowed Google to grow and innovate in ways that might not have been possible had Schmidt clung to the ego's desire for dominance and control. His experience illustrates how letting go of the ego can create an environment that is more creative, productive, and successful. Letting go of the ego does not mean abandoning ambition or self-assertion. Rather, it is about releasing the attachment to outcomes. The ego often distorts our perception of ourselves and others, making us feel isolated or separate. But when we stop identifying with these illusions, we open ourselves to the possibility of real connection, both with ourselves and others. True fulfillment doesn't come from external validation, but from within, from the realization that we are enough as we are, regardless of what we achieve. Gratitude and generosity are essential practices that help us shift away from the ego's narrow focus on self-interest and towards a more expansive, connected view of the world. Gratitude allows us to appreciate what we have instead of constantly striving for more. It helps us shift from a mindset of scarcity to one of abundance, recognizing the richness of our lives, even in difficult times. Oprah Winfrey is a great example of someone who embodies this mindset. Despite facing numerous obstacles in her early life, Oprah has consistently expressed gratitude for the people and experiences that have shaped her journey. Her focus on gratitude has been integral to her success and has inspired millions of others to live with appreciation. Gratitude is not just about recognizing the good. It's about transforming challenges into opportunities for growth. When life presents difficulties, gratitude allows us to find meaning in the experience. It reminds us that even in hardship, there are lessons to be learned and strengths to be gained. Buddhist teachings emphasize this point, reminding us that while we cannot control life's circumstances, we can control our response to them. By cultivating gratitude, we can accept the present moment and embrace life as it comes, with all its uncertainties. Generosity, like gratitude, is a practice that helps us transcend the ego and connect more deeply with others. When we give without expectation of receiving anything in return, we move beyond self-interest and contribute to the well-being of others. Bill and Melinda Gates are examples of this kind of generosity, using their wealth to fund projects aimed at alleviating global poverty, improving education, and advancing healthcare. Their work demonstrates how generosity can be a force for social change and can make a profound impact on the world. Generosity doesn't always have to be grand or financial. It can take many forms: a listening ear, a kind word, or an act of service. Every time we give, we break down the walls of the ego, recognizing that we are all interconnected. Even small acts of kindness create ripples of goodwill that can transform our communities and the world at large. Malala Yousafzai is another example of generosity in action. She has dedicated her life to advocating for girls' education, using her platform to raise awareness about the challenges faced by millions of young girls around the world. Her generosity is not about wealth but about using her voice and influence to serve a greater cause. Generosity is also an act of self-transcendence. When we give selflessly, we align ourselves with a higher purpose and move beyond the ego's limited view of self. This process is at the heart of Buddhist teachings, which see generosity as a form of compassion that leads to spiritual growth. By letting go of attachment to material possessions and the need for personal gain, we tap into a deeper sense of peace and fulfillment. Together, gratitude and generosity form a powerful combination that helps us let go of the ego and embrace a life of connection, service, and authenticity. They are practices that shape our inner lives and influence the way we engage with the world. Each day, we have countless opportunities to express gratitude and generosity, small acts that create a ripple effect, contributing to a more compassionate and peaceful world. Ultimately, these practices shift our focus from the self to the collective, reminding us that our well-being is intertwined with that of others. When we live with gratitude and generosity, we experience greater peace, joy, and fulfillment. These qualities allow us to connect with our true selves, free from the ego's grip, and engage with the world in a more authentic, loving, and harmonious way. Continuing from our exploration of gratitude and generosity, we now delve into one of the most profound teachings of Buddhism, the understanding and acceptance of impermanence. Life is in a constant state of flux, and the more we attempt to cling to things, be it relationships, possessions, or even emotions, the more we invite suffering. Impermanence, however, is not something to fear but rather to embrace, as it is a natural law that governs all existence. Life's transience is not only inevitable but also a part of the deeper wisdom that Buddhism offers. When we reflect on impermanence, we gain a sense of detachment and appreciation for the present moment, recognizing that everything, including our struggles, is temporary. In this understanding, we free ourselves from the burden of clinging and instead learn to savor each fleeting moment. By accepting that nothing lasts forever, we open ourselves to peace. It is in this acceptance of impermanence that we find true serenity. Consider the life of Nelson Mandela, one of the most admired leaders of the 20th century. Mandela's journey, marked by profound changes, from his time as an anti-apartheid activist to his imprisonment and eventual presidency, demonstrates the power of embracing impermanence. Throughout his life, he remained grounded in the belief that change was a natural part of existence. His acceptance of the impermanence of his situation, along with his ability to adapt through his many roles, allowed him to maintain a sense of purpose and contribute to the greater good of humanity. Mandela understood that his life was not about holding onto one identity or position, but about contributing to a larger, ever-changing journey toward justice and equality. Impermanence also teaches us to value the beauty of each passing moment. Often, we take the present for granted, assuming that things will remain the same. Yet when we truly understand that everything is transient, we begin to see the preciousness of each moment. Every experience, whether small or large, becomes an opportunity to appreciate life's impermanence. For example, Albert Einstein, whose groundbreaking contributions to science changed the course of history, often reflected on the fleeting nature of life. Despite his fame, Einstein chose to focus not on accolades or recognition, but on the pursuit of knowledge, emphasizing the importance of living in the present and finding peace with life's natural flow. His awareness of the temporary nature of all things allowed him to appreciate the process of discovery rather than the end results. In Buddhism, the understanding of impermanence is key to the path of liberation. The Buddha taught that all things are in a constant state of flux, and that suffering arises when we try to hold on to things that are inevitably changing. This teaching is central to the Buddha's first noble truth, which states that suffering is inherent in life, but that suffering can be alleviated by recognizing impermanence. When we accept that everything, our emotions, relationships, and material possessions is temporary, we free ourselves from the cycle of attachment. We stop clinging to the past and fearing the future, and instead, we learn to live fully in the present with an open heart and mind. This wisdom is beautifully illustrated in the Buddha's teachings. In his first noble truth, the Buddha explained that suffering is an inherent part of life, but He also taught that this suffering could be alleviated by understanding the impermanence of all things. The Buddha reminded us that everything we encounter, whether feelings of joy, sadness, love, or even pain, is subject to change. By understanding this, we can stop resisting the flow of life and learn to embrace the rhythm of existence. The key is to stop clinging to emotions or circumstances and instead accept the natural ebb and flow of life. In our own lives, we can practice embracing impermanence by noticing how our thoughts and feelings change from moment to moment. Rather than identifying with a single emotion or thought, we can acknowledge it, experience it, and then let it go. Just as we would not hold onto a leaf caught in the wind, we can learn to let go of our emotions, understanding that they, too, will pass. This practice helps us develop resilience, teaching us that we are not defined by any one moment or feeling. Instead, we are defined by our ability to adapt and flow with life's changes. A powerful example of embracing impermanence in modern history is Queen Elizabeth II. Her reign spanned over 7 decades, during which she witnessed dramatic shifts in the world. And in her own country, despite these ongoing changes in politics, culture, and society, she remained a steady and unwavering leader. Her ability to navigate the impermanence of her role and adapt to the times while holding firm to her values of duty, service, and commitment demonstrated a profound understanding of impermanence. Queen Elizabeth accepted that her role was temporary, but she also knew that the impact of her leadership, rooted in a deep sense of purpose, would outlast her reign. Even in our personal lives, embracing impermanence can foster a sense of peace and acceptance. Many of us face periods of hardship, loss, or transition, whether it's the end of a relationship, the death of a loved one, or major life changes. These experiences can feel overwhelming, as we often resist the passage of time. However, by accepting that these experiences are impermanent, we can find solace in knowing that the pain we feel is not permanent, just as the joy we experience is also fleeting. Instead of clinging to happy moments or avoiding difficult ones, we learn to experience life fully, knowing that each moment will eventually pass. The life of Maya Angelou, the renowned poet and civil rights activist, exemplifies this attitude. Angelou faced numerous challenges, including personal trauma and public adversity, yet she consistently spoke about the importance of embracing change and finding strength in it. In her poem, Still I Rise, Angelou reflects the resilience that comes with accepting impermanence. She writes, "You may trod me in the very dirt / but still, like dust, I'll rise." This powerful declaration embodies how embracing impermanence can lead to personal transformation and strength in the face of hardship. Embracing impermanence doesn't mean giving in to passivity or apathy. Rather, it calls us to live with intention and presence, knowing that each moment is fleeting. Life becomes a precious gift, and every experience is an opportunity for growth and learning. As we become more attuned to impermanence, we begin to approach life with greater clarity and wisdom. We detach from the need for specific outcomes and instead focus on the process of living with presence and purpose. In Buddhism, one of the most important practices is the contemplation of impermanence, known as anicca. Reflecting on the transient nature of life helps us detach from our attachments and develop a deeper sense of equanimity. Whether it's the changing seasons, the aging of our bodies, or the shifting nature of our emotions, we are reminded that everything is impermanent. And yet, it is in this very impermanence that we find freedom. We are not bound by the past or the future. We are free to live fully in the present moment, embracing life as it is. Ultimately, the practice of embracing impermanence leads us to a deeper understanding of ourselves and our place in the world. By letting go of our attachments and expectations, we release the fear of change. We learn to flow with life rather than resist it. discovering the peace that comes from accepting the natural ebb and flow of existence. As we move into the final months of 2024, I encourage you to reflect on the insights we've discussed today. True transformation is not about fixing yourself or seeking a perfect version of who you think you should be. It's about reconnecting with the present moment, embracing mindfulness, practicing compassion, and letting go of the attachments and ego that weigh you down. Transformation begins with intention.
Living with love.
Wisdom and clarity is not a destination, but a continual journey. And as we stand on the cusp of a new year, take a moment to pause, breathe, and reflect on the incredible power within you to create lasting change. Remember, you already have everything you need to transform your life. The power to change is within you, and all it takes is a conscious step forward. If this video resonated with you, I invite you to take action. Reflect on what you're grateful for today, and share your thoughts in the comments below. If you found value in this message, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Don't miss out on the upcoming videos that will continue to guide you on this path of transformation. Together, let's make 2024 a year of lasting change and inner growth.